So right now the Seahawks are leading. I believe they're leading the NFC West at 3-1, and the Lions are now 3-1. But that still has them trailing the Vikings because the Vikings jumped out to a quick 28-0 lead against the Packers
and almost lost.
But they held on to it, dude. They're running freaking Sam Darnold out there as their quarterback, and they're the best team in football right now.
Gross.
Is he not a good quarterback?
No, he's been terrible.
He's actually a good quarterback, but he's been on terrible teams, so he doesn't look like he's been like. He came out of college highly recruited.
I think he was a third overall pick in the NFL
and
draft.
He just went to the Jets. And then it's like Aaron Rodgers is struggling with the Jets. Like, you're not going to win. And people started blaming Aaron. When he went and played for Panthers too, right?
Yeah, so when you look at him and Baker Mayfield almost had the exact same thing happen to him. They got drafted super high. The only difference is Baker actually had success with the Cleveland Browns, but they went to two organizations who are terrible. Just terrible organizations up and down, and you can look at their overall records to verify it. They don't have any idea of how to develop any talent on their team. If you don't come there as the greatest, you're not going to leave any good.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Unless you're a Myles Garrett, who's a generational talent, don't expect to be developed in any way, shape, or form. So that was going to say, Baker Mayfield got drafted number 1 overall. I think Sam Darnold went 3 in that same draft.
I think he was top 5 for sure.
Yeah, Browns and Jets. And they both had not great careers. Honestly, when I look back on it, I think Baker got the short end of the stick, man, because he was not a bad quarterback for the Browns. He really wasn't.
No.
But they get cut or traded to the Carolina Panthers, both of them. And both of them do terrible with the Carolina Panthers. Because again,
a terrible team.
A terrible franchise. And so then they both, again, leave. Both of them went to Los Angeles, or it's California. One went to the San Francisco 49ers, Sam Darnold. The other one went to the Los Angeles Rams, which was Baker Mayfield. Both of them have great coaches who really do a great job of developing quarterbacks. Look at what they've done right now. Sean McVay took the Rams to the Super Bowl with Jared Goff, traded him, right? Got Matt Stafford. Won a Super Bowl with Matthew Stafford, okay? And then obviously we know about Brock Purdy, what he's doing in San Francisco with Kyle Shanahan. Both of those guys leave those teams, and now look what they're doing.
Yeah, and Sam Darnold, so to answer your question, he literally just was the teaming. He's always been a good quarterback, but when you go to a crappy team, there's only so much you can do.
Yeah, you can't carry the whole
The problem is when they go to these crappy teams, and we talked about this in the last episode, is they expect you to do so much. Like Caleb Williams maybe have been a good quarterback, but he's asked to do so much because he's the number 1 overall pick going into a place where they got rid of the quarterback. He's the guy. And at the end of the day, the NFL is just so much team faster. Like everybody's fast, not just when Caleb Williams has been the best player on the field all the way through high school and college, right?
Right.
You go to the NFL, everybody's the best player on the field
from their hometown.
So and he's having a hard time, and you see it struggling with it because they're asking him to do too much.
And the mentality of being in the NFL versus your college team has got to be major. Like people have therapists, they probably should have.
Well, yeah, sports psychology is actually a big thing now.
Right.
It's really a big thing. But like in the case of Sam Darnold and Baker Mayfield, and I keep using these two as examples because Baker has turned out to be a really good quarterback in Tampa Bay, and he won another playoff game with them last year. And Sam Darnold, I mean, I don't know if he's going to stay this good, but 4 games into the season with the Minnesota Vikings, he was not expected to be good at all.
And they're 4-0.
He's the MVP favorite. And yesterday against that game with the Vikings, that guy went out there and what did he throw? 4 touchdowns or 3 touchdowns?
I can't remember.
Because the game before he threw,
I think he threw 3 and they ran 1 in.
3 touchdowns. Yeah. You know what's crazy with Jordan Love? When you're saying he had the highest score, he threw 3 picks, man.
Yeah.
He threw 3 picks. He didn't have he threw 4 touchdowns, but 3 interceptions is pretty awful. But anyway, the point is like when you get drafted as a top quarterback to a bad team, if it's a bad team that's also a bad organization, you're not going to have a good career.
It's tough.
You're not going to.
I always think it's just so weird that when you're traded, like you have no say, right?
Yeah, you're an employer. Like they're an employer and employee. Like you're out
killing it on this one team, and then for whatever reason they need to trade you, and so you get stuck with this crappy team, and you get no say in where you're going.
And it can ruin your career.
Yes.
Yeah, and they basically chase $1 at that point. Yeah. It's all about money at that point. You're just hoping to get paid.
I just feel bad for guys like those 2 guys we just talked about. If they didn't end up landing in a better situation later in their career, they would go down as busts. Some of the biggest busts of all time.
You and I just talking about this? I think we were talking about with the NBA, but I was asking Eric, these super good guys like, okay, Aaron Rodgers or whatever, who have really good reputations, and then they're pulled because they're so good that this team's like, well, we need him for our team. Do they feel flattered, or are they feeling overwhelmed? Now I got to try to build this whole new team up from scratch, and I have all this pressure on me.
Makes you wonder. Maybe it's more of like I'm getting paid at this point in my career.
They don't have like any passion either way. It's just
like that's like Aaron Rodgers. I mean, I think he wants to win, but dude, what are you gonna do? You're on the Jets, dude, and you've got no line. You're getting tackled way more. You're getting hit way more than you ever did in Green Bay. He didn't know how to adjust to that, so he's having a hard time. He's struggling, and they're not really putting up points. The game was real low scoring, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, in fact, so that was one of the 4 games I did watch on Sunday, and let me tell you what, that was a painful watch. Yeah. It was a painful watch from both teams. At the end of the half, Bo Nix, the quarterback for the Broncos, end of the half, 7 for 15, negative 9 yards.
That's terrible.
Negative 9 yards with 7 completions. Guys caught the ball and went backwards on him for 9 yards. Like that's I have never seen a stat line like that.
Whose fault is that? The quarterback?
That's 100% the coach. It was both offensive coordinator.
Calls.
Well, one, it was a really bad weather day. Like it was raining like crazy. Yeah. The field was super slippery. The balls obviously were soaked. So throwing that is hard. Yeah. Catching that is hard. So what they were doing was tons of little swing flare passes out to the running back, screens back behind the line. And both teams, his defenses so far have been playing like really good this year, which was unexpected for me when it comes to the Broncos. But both teams are playing really good defenses. So when you're throwing these tiny little passes behind the line and the defense is doing a great job of pursuing and tackling, you're not going to get anything. Dude, that game was so hard. I honestly thought that game was going to end 3-0. It ended 10-9.
Yeah, I was going to say, it didn't end much better.
No, it didn't.
Yeah,
it was
a very high scoring game.
Yeah, that was a hard watch. Bo Nix stepped it up big time in the second half. Yeah. And actually ended with positive passing yards. I think they only threw for 60. I think that was their end game, was 60 passing yards. It was a hard watch. But watching that game, it really, for me, I'm looking like, I really put all that on Aaron Rodgers because you're saying he doesn't have time. He's got plenty of freaking time. His offensive line is probably the best offensive line the Jets have had in 20 years.
Yeah, but they've
never had better skill positions. Like when you look at the receivers they got, the running backs, but for whatever reason, that offense is awful.
I mean, Breece Hall's a stud.
He's a great running back. And like we say, when you got Garrett Wilson as a receiver who had a great year last year when nobody was throwing him the ball, I mean, it was a parade of backups coming in to throw the ball. I don't know what it is with Aaron Rodgers. He may not be good anymore. I don't know. Probably. I'm not going to say that because...
How old is he? In his
40.
40? No, just 40.
He's 40,
yeah. 43.
He needs to let it go.
Yeah.
All right.
He's not Joe Flacco.
No, Joe freaking Flacco, dude.
Joe Flacco comes
Watch
in.
that guy come in yesterday. Dude, the Colts, that was another one of those games I watched. The Colts, they gave it to the Steelers, man. They really did.
When they handed him their first loss.
First loss
Joe Flacco.
Joe Flacco came in and saved
couch again. Oh, yeah.
He's
played for
not
the
as
Ravens
old, but he's
years ago. Yeah. And then he was like retired last year, and they called him up and were like, who was it?
It was the Browns.
The Browns called him up and they're like, hey, we have an opening. He's literally at home on Mother's Day or something, or not Mother's
Hasn't
during
been training, I'm sure.
Yeah, no, not at all. And they're like, hey, we need you to come in. And he comes in and starts. He passes the physical, starts, and ends up like going like 4-0 as a starter.
And he took the Browns, again, a horrible franchise, took them to the playoffs.
Yeah.
Right? And he lost that first game, but I mean, they got blown up by the Texans. But then the Browns decided, hey, you know what, Joe, thanks for what you've done.
Thanksgiving? Maybe he's at his mom's house on Thanksgiving.
I think it was about that time. Because
That's crazy.
He ended up throwing for like over 1,000 yards in only 4 games. He was
but
really
how
putting on
desperate
work.
were the Browns? Like, why would they have to go to a guy who was retired?
Well, they did it because, one, I think Joe Flacco wasn't officially retired. He was more like nobody had signed him, so he was just kind of staying in shape. You know, like him. He literally was throwing the ball at the high school park with his dad. That's what he was doing to stay in shape, was just throwing balls to his dad. And the Browns had a really good defense, and they have a really good team. But they have the worst quarterback situation probably in the NFL because of the amount of money they're paying him and the horrible person he is.